How you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Today I wanted to talk about 5 different ways that you can stop doubting yourself. You can work hard and you can make things happen, right? And you can get on with this journey. Procrastination is one of the biggest things that stops people from moving forwards. The more you procrastinate, the more it's going to stop you from moving forwards because it has its own momentum, procrastination sort of becomes habitual, and before you know it, it's a part of your behavior, putting things off. Another one of the prerequisites of success is that you've got to work hard. You've got to put in those extra hours, you've got to put in that extra effort. Working hard doesn't guarantee success, right? It doesn't. Once you put the extra effort in, it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be successful at doing this, right? But it makes that success a lot more likely to happen, right? First thing is, don't feel that you have to plan everything in order to succeed, right? Sometimes, I love the whole thing about planning. I love having a goal to aim towards. I think if you don't have a goal, if you don't have something to aim towards, you're just basically spinning around in circles. You might as well be. You're like a boat without a rudder. You're just being taken wherever the tide takes you, right? And but I love having that plan at the end of the day. I love figuring out how I'm going to get to. I've got a 5-year plan, and then I've got each a year step-by-step approach to how I'm going to get to that 5-year plan, and then each year I know I can break down each part of it into chunks and then figure out how I'm going to get to that. But you can get to a point where you're just chunking too much, you're breaking things down too much, and sometimes it's just about getting moving and going with the flow. The plan that I had 5 years ago, what I started out with when I quit drinking alcohol, when I started Alcohol Mastery, has very little semblance to what I'm doing now. It's because I changed. I had a 5-year plan of where I wanted to be, and I did break it down into yearly plans. But by the time I got to the first year, I was just heading in a completely different direction. So it just took a lot of it changed the way I was going, and I think I've done that for the last few years, to be honest. As I'm learning more stuff, you can only start out with what you know. You can only start out from the perspective of what you know, and as you learn more things as you're going forwards, your plans are automatically and naturally going to change because you're just being taken in a completely new direction. Now, if you get too stuck with the finer details of a plan, you could get upset about not having to achieve this and not having to achieve that, and you didn't get to this goal, you didn't get to that goal. Sometimes the goals are just not worth reaching, but you don't realize that until you have got to the goal before that. Do you understand? So certainly have a larger goal or larger goals that you're working towards. Break those goals down, but always try and work in a margin of error along the way. Work in the fact that you're going to be changing a lot of these things, and remember that going towards these goals is as much about the journey as it is about reaching the destination. It's more about the journey because you never know what's going to happen around the corner. You might never reach the destination, so you have to be happy enough doing making the journey, being on the journey. That's what it's all about. And that brings me to the next part, which is don't overthink things. Don't overthink the whole process. As I say, it's good to have this plan, but sometimes we can just get bogged down in the thinking process, in the thinking part of this whole thing, and not actually get anything done. And that's how many plans has that killed? How many people's dreams has that killed? Just being stuck thinking, well, this might not go right or that might not go right. I'm one of the worst people for this because I tend to like to plan. I like to write things down. I like to think things through before I take a move. And I've learned that if I don't take the first step forwards, then sometimes it's not going to happen. Things won't happen. So, I've got to plan to a certain degree, because that's the way my brain works, right? I've got to put it down on paper, and I have to think about things and know that I'm sort of nearly there on that first step, right? But then after that, I tend to take the first step, because I've learned from my own experience as well that, once you do take that first step, then the second step might appear to be a lot clearer. It might appear to be more vague, right? But you might not want to go to that second step. You might think, well, no, I don't really want to go that way. I need to move slightly to the left of that, or slightly to the right of that, or I might need to totally rethink the whole thing again, or it might be just a different way of moving forward, Like when you're quitting drinking alcohol, that first step is taking the step across the line, right? Is moving towards your why. Why are you doing this? This is your reason for quitting out there, and it's in the distance. You know why you're doing this, and you're aiming towards that. And once you get to 30 days, you'll have more experience. You get to 60 days and 90 days, you have more experience yet again. And you can change as you're moving along, but there's nothing that takes the place of taking the action and getting out there and doing it. Everything else is, all the thought that you want to do in the world is just that. It's thought. It's not progressing you forwards. It's not moving you an inch towards your end goal, because the only thing that's going to do that is action. So don't get too bogged down in the thinking part of it. The next part is to remember all your past doubts. I'm not telling you to think about your past doubts and think about how they have affected the way you're going now, but remember that most of the past doubts that you ever had haven't come true. They were just doubts in your head. Most of the fears that we have about things never come true. So remember the golem. That's the part of you that doesn't like the change. As soon as they think that there's going to be a change in the offing, they just they want to lie down and go to sleep and pretend nothing's happening and just remain the same. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. They're the ones that present all these doubts to you. So just be cognizant of the gremlin. Be cognizant of that voice, and that it is the voice that is trying to protect you at the end of the day, but it's trying to protect you in a way which is stopping all growth. This type of thinking, all it does is tries to keep the status quo, but the status quo is something which is just going to keep you where you are, or worse, bring you back down again. Another one is to interrupt the pattern. Don't allow your thoughts to spiral out of control. And I say most of this stuff is down to your thinking. You have to think these things first. You have to understand what you're thinking first, and only then, when you understand how you're thinking and what you're thinking, can you do anything about it. So you've got to use pattern interrupts, which is understand that you're doing it right. Think about what you're thinking. Think about the doubts. Think about where these doubts are pushing you. Think about the reality of the doubts, and then just say to yourself, stop it, or say to yourself, I persist, I can do this, and then do it. Put all that thinking into action and start walking the walk. Time for talking and time for thinking is over. Walk the walk. It's the biggest thing to get over your fears, is to actually go out and do them. Take action. Action is that one thing that no matter what you do, once you're on the move, it's like, if you've ever gone out running, and everyone that's ever gone out running has had mornings where they've just felt like they didn't want to go out. Anyone that's gone out walking, anyone that's done anything that they really, they know it's going to take a bit of hard work to do. And it's difficult to get that start. It's difficult to put those running shoes on and to get out the door. But once you do that, once you get out the door, once you start running, once you start doing the thing that is going to be hard work, and you start getting momentum, it becomes easier. So that's what I'm talking about with just a pattern interrupt. Is It's moving yourself in a direction, changing the direction that you're going, changing the way that you're thinking in order to change the way your thoughts are moving, you know. The fourth way is to fake it until you make it. You know, I've spoken about this before. There's a lot of things that we have fear of doing because we think that we don't know how to do them, right? We think that we're going to make fools out of ourselves. And in a lot of cases, you know, most people, anyone who's ever done anything in life has to start out from a certain perspective, right? You start out from a beginner. And anybody that starts, if you start out as a runner, if you start out as a moving into a new business, if you start out down a path of education, whatever it is that you're doing, you start out from the perspective of a novice, right? And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a fool out of yourself if that's the way you think, right? But everyone does this, so there's no harm in it, there's no foul in it, everyone does it. So the difference between some people and other people is that some people have an air of confidence about them, right? They don't let it get onto their backs, you know, they allow the failure to slide off them like water off a duck's back, and they move on. And you can do this yourself. You can fake it until you make it. And I once saw a TED talk with a woman who, she was talking about posture as being one of the most important things that you can do to have that air of confidence and to build up that stamina in yourself, that bit of get up and go before you actually start getting up and going, right? And that's to stand. She was talking about doing the Wonder Woman stance, right? But I'll rephrase that for the blokes out there. If you're a woman, right, then look at this from the perspective of Wonder Woman, and it's doing the Superman pose, right? And it's basically standing there with your head up, your shoulders back, your chest out, and your arms on your waist, right? And you stand there like Superman, you know, your feet planted at shoulder width apart, and you're just taking deep breaths and you think, I'm Superman, you know. I don't know, it sounds stupid, right? But it does fill you with confidence, right? It gives you something different, right? And you know, you don't have to do this in front of people. I'm not saying that, you know, when you're doing something and you need to have confidence to stand up and do a Superman pose in front of people. Take yourself off to the toilet, you know, or to a quiet room somewhere and just do it, you know. Another way of doing it is to walk around like Rocky, you know, like when he's doing that, and he's doing all the running down the streets, and he runs up that staircase in Philadelphia. That's those steps, and once he gets to the top of the steps, then he sticks his arms up in the air, you know. And doing that is another way of giving you confidence, right? So, you know, the simple solutions, but it's a pattern interrupt. It interrupts the pattern that you're in and puts you into a different way of thinking, right? And that's what it's all about, you know. It's all about trying to short circuit the doubts, just enough time to get you moving and to get you moving forwards, to get you taking action. Do you understand? So don't plan every detail, right? You don't need to plan every detail. Sometimes you just need to get across that line and start moving. Same thing as you don't have to overthink things, you know. Don't get so bogged down in the thought process that you can't take action because you haven't thought things through. Remember all your past doubts. These are, you know, the times when you've had doubts about the things that you can do, but you've done them anyway, and you've realized that those past doubts are not really true at all, right? Try to use as many pattern interrupts as you can, you know. Think about, first of all, get the doubts to the surface, realize that this is what you're doing. You know, shout stop it, or I persist, or whatever it is to overcome the golem. And then finally, you know, use something like the Superman pose or the Rocky pose, you know, to just give you enough fake it until you make it mentality to get you moving and to you know, to get your feet moving forwards, to get you to take those actions. So look, if you have any questions at all, leave a comment down below. If you've got any suggestions for videos, same thing. If you want to come on over to the website, if you want to get our free alcohol mastery starter pack, which has a couple of different video courses and books and a few other videos just to help you out in those first few weeks, And until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Take care of yourself. Keep the alcohol out of your mouth. Stay safe. Fuck the doubts out to one side and keep moving forwards. Onwards and upwards, eh? Onwards and upwards. Take care of yourself. Bye now.